Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to demystify India's criminal justice system. Think of this as your friendly guide. We're going to walk through the entire journey, from the moment a crime happens all the way to a final verdict in court.
So, let's start with something we can all imagine, right? Heated argument suddenly turns into a fight, and somebody gets hurt, maybe badly. What happens next? Who do you call? What's the process? This simple, unfortunately common scenario is going to be our roadmap for understanding the whole system.
And to make this whole thing feel a lot less like a textbook, we're going to follow the story of two guys. Sujesh, who is the victim in our story, and Mukesh, the person accused of hurting him. Their journey is going to shine a light on every single step.
Okay, but before we dive in, let's get one thing straight. What even is a crime in the eyes of the law? You see, it's not just a personal problem between two people. A crime is an act that's seen as harmful to all of society. And that's a really key point. It's why a criminal case is always the state versus the accused, not just one person suing another.
I love this analogy. It makes things so clear. Think of the legal system like a game of cricket. You've got your substantive laws, like the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which are basically the rules of the game. They tell you what's right and what's wrong, like theft is a crime. Then you have procedural laws, like the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita. That's the umpire's process. It lays out exactly how the police and the courts are supposed to enforce those rules.
All right, so a potential crime has been committed. Now what? The very first and honestly the most critical question the system asks is this: is the offense cognizant or non-cognizant? Believe it or not, the answer to this one question pretty much determines everything that happens from here on out.
So what's the big difference? Well, it all boils down to how serious the crime is. Cognizable offenses are the serious ones. Think murder, kidnapping, or as we'll see, serious injury. For these, the police can jump into action right away. They can arrest without a warrant and start investigating immediately. But for less serious, non-cognizable offenses, they need to get a judge's permission first. It's a system of checks and balances, you know. It lets police act fast on major threats, but prevents them from overstepping on minor issues.
So let's get back to our story. Sujesh was badly hurt. He lost some teeth, his ear was injured. In legal terms, this is called grievous hurt, and it's classified as a serious cognizable offense. That means when he makes the decision to go to the police, a very specific and powerful chain of events is about to kick off.
And that big distinction we just talked about, it directly decides what kind of report the police file. This table lays it out perfectly. Because Sudesh's injury is cognizable, the police will file a first information report, or an FIR. That's the green light for them to investigate and arrest. If it had been a minor issue, a non-cognizable offense, they'd file an NCR and would have to wait for a court order to do anything.
So what does it actually look like to file an FIR? It's pretty straightforward. In our story, Sujesh goes to the police station. First, he just states the facts as they happened. The police write it all down. Then, and this is important, he verifies that what they wrote is accurate. And finally, he gets a free copy. That piece of paper is the official starting pistol for the entire case.
Now this is something every single one of us should know. You have rights when you file a complaint. First, the police cannot refuse to file an FIR if you're reporting a cognizable crime. It's not optional for them. Second, it has to be written down in your own words. Then, they have to read it back to you to make sure it's right. And finally, you are absolutely entitled to a free copy. Knowing this stuff is so empowering.
Now, don't expect all of this to happen in an hour. The law actually sets up a kind of clock for the investigation. The police can take up to 14 days to do a preliminary check before they even file the FIR. But once that FIR is filed, the clock really starts ticking. They generally have 90 days to wrap up their entire investigation. It helps set expectations for everyone.
So what are the police actually doing during that investigation? Well, they get to work, just like in the movies. In our story, the officer in charge, Sub-Inspector Sunidhi, starts interviewing witnesses, shopkeepers who saw the fight. She collects crucial CCTV footage. She gathers every piece of evidence she can find. This is the fact-finding mission.
Okay, so the evidence starts pointing towards Mukesh, and the police decide to arrest him. And this is where the story takes a really important turn. We have to remember that our justice system is all about balance. Just like Sujesh, the victim, has rights, Mukesh, the accused, also has fundamental legal protections.
And these rights are non-negotiable. If you're arrested, the police must tell you why. You have the right to call a friend or a family member to let them know what's happening. You have the right to a lawyer. And critically, they can't just lock you up and throw away the key. There are strict rules, even about things like using handcuffs.
Let's just focus on this number for a second. 24. This isn't just a random number. It's one of the most powerful safeguards in our Constitution. The police cannot hold a person for more than 24 hours without bringing them before a judge or a magistrate. That judge's job is to review the arrest and make sure it's legal. It's a crucial check on police power.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This quote from a famous Supreme Court case says it all. The rights of someone who is accused aren't just legal loopholes. They're considered a fundamental part of human rights. This case, the DK Basu case, was actually a landmark judgment that laid down a whole set of strict guidelines for the police to follow during an arrest, to prevent any abuse of power.
Right, so once the police have gathered all their evidence and taken all their statements, their main job is done. They then bundle everything up into one final report and they submit it to the court. At this point, the case officially moves from the police to the judiciary.
Now, that final police report can lead the case down one of two roads. If the police believe they found enough evidence to make a strong case against the accused, they file what's called a charge sheet. That means, let's go to trial. But if the evidence just isn't there, they file a closure report, basically telling the court, we don't think there's enough here to proceed.
And assuming a charge sheet is filed, we finally land at the trial. This is the main event, the culmination of everything. It's no longer about what the police think happened. It's about what the prosecution can prove happened, beyond a reasonable doubt. They present their evidence, the defense gets to challenge every bit of it, and a neutral judge listens to both sides to deliver the final verdict.
So there you have it, from a street fight to an FIR to an investigation all the way to a trial. We followed the entire life cycle of a criminal case. Look, understanding this process is the first and honestly the most powerful step you can take. But the real question to leave you with is this. Now that you know the process, how can you make sure that your rights and the rights of everyone around you are actually protected at every single one of these steps? That really is what it's all about.